And it's Ken Kraetzer for CaMMVetsMedia. We are in New York City on the Hudson River for one of our favorite days of the year, and that is this parade of ships for New York City Fleet Week. And it is a gorgeous day, not a cloud in the sky, getting warm already. And we've had some of the escort ships already coming into New York Harbor. We're going to have the USS Marinette Littoral Combat Ship 25, we can see out there right now, coming into view. And we will also have the USS Bataan coming in a little later. But always a big day for the Navy here in New York City, the Marine Corps, the Coast Guard, and the Maritime Services. All here in New York to welcome the fleet. And it's Ken Kraetzer for CaMMVetsMedia. I always like to thank our sponsors, the New York Yankees. We were actually at the game last night. Beautiful place, Yankee Stadium, to go for a game. The weather's good now. Big crowd there last night. And there's going to be a lot of sailors and Marines coming out to baseball in New York City during Fleet Week. Always fun to see the sailors out at baseball. Last year we were actually part of the commissioning of the USS Hudson, and we escorted a busload of sailors to Yankee Stadium. What a nice evening that was. So that's the USS Marinette, which honors the town it was built in Wisconsin. And I know it's built by a subsidiary of Lockheed Martin. Smaller ship, littoral means that it's built to operate in shallow water. So you got a helicopter right on top. And just great to see the start of New York City Fleet Week. We got a Coast Guard cutter coming in. And the Bataan, we've been on it a few times. It was here 2 years ago. I actually got a chance to sail overnight on the ship, so amphibious assault ship. But USS Marinette, a littoral combat ship. And it's designed to be modular, to have multi-purposes. Can do mine warfare, can go offensive engagements, working with allied countries. You said, and we were in the Association of the Army Conference in Hawaii last week. They were talking about the value of littoral combat ships working with partners and allies in Asia, some of the coastal defense areas. It's got a deck gun up front and light deck on the back. Something you see with every ship now is a flight deck, so that helicopters can land. One of the great innovations in naval ship construction, so that they can transport personnel, supplies, spare parts to a ship at sea, and bring the mail. And one of the things that you learn talking to military people is how valuable mail, to receive mail, is for them. It's funny. Okay, it's USS Marinette, named for a town, city in Wisconsin where it was manufactured. And a number of security vessels out. A helicopter flying just above. Coast Guard cutter Calhoun. Also in the parade of ships, the Coast Guard cutter Katherine Walker. We had a chance to be at the commissioning of a new Coast Guard cutter in New York last year, named for the Coast Guard hero of World War II. And that being a large ship that's going to be sent to the Middle East. The NYPD. A couple more helicopters coming up. Like Apache helicopters and the Army version. I'm not sure if the Army has any assets in this. And we've got a Coast Guard cutter coming up. And that is the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Calhoun, WMSL 759. Great to see it. It's okay.
Look out.
Ken Kraetzer at CaMMVetsMedia. Hudson and I were here. Been here for 15 years. Yeah. Where are you guys from? Your name again?
Sherry.
Sherry, okay. Yeah, we cover the academies. There's some and what else to do? We actually got out with the Navy one too. And we have the FGS Frankfurt on Main A1412 from Germany. It's like kind of a freighter supply ship. And it's going past the Intrepid. And you can see just behind it is the flagship of New York City Fleet Week, the USS Bataan, just back from a deployment. They've got 4 tugboats around the Bataan today. One on the Frankfurt on Main. And the ships other than the Bataan will sail up the Hudson River a distance. I'm not sure if the Frankfurt on Main. It's got a dock next door. And yeah, it'll probably go up, we'll see. Again, military now is about working with allies. And certainly working within NATO on the European front. When we were in Hawaii last week at the Army Conference, Association U.S. Army, they talked about working with allies so closely. You don't have NATO in the Pacific, but you have mutual defense agreements. It's said with 5 countries in the Pacific. And you can imagine who they may be. You know, close relationships with Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Australia. And New Zealand. All countries that are close allies of the United States, going back to World War II and beyond. This is the Frankfurt on Main. One moment.
How are you? You good? It's weird to see it from this this is the first time you've been on board to shake up. It's been a little strange. Yeah. Yeah, last night.
Again, we are in New York City Fleet Week, CaMMVetsMedia, watching the parade of ships as the ships enter New York Harbor, sailing up the Hudson River. One great days, and it's just gorgeous today. Not a cloud in the sky. It's getting warm out. One of those days you'll look forward to all winter. And that is a Frankfurt on Main, a German supply vessel. A1412, it's got containers right up on the front. And they will be welcomed here in New York. 2 German ships this year. And USS Bataan arriving. It's got 4 tugboats protecting its side with the island. And we got wind today, and tides are a big deal. They You watch what the tides are going to be very carefully. US Bataan is an amphibious assault ship. It's about the size of a World War II Essex-class carrier. But don't call it that. It's an amphibious assault ship for taking Marines out wherever they need to go in the world to fight. And it can fight itself. Some of the ships like Bataan, it's called the Wasp class, frequent visitor to New York City, were rebuilt so they can handle F-35s. And they call them Lightning carriers. I'm not sure if Bataan has been set up that way. We'll have to, when we visit later, we can find out more. That it was rebuilt. They had to harden the flight deck to accommodate a squadron of F-35s. Normally it has helicopters and Ospreys and has some vertical takeoff planes that can go out to it depending on the mission. But they want to use these ships as auxiliary platforms for launching F-35s. They were just finishing doing the refit of the Von Homer Chart in California, where it caught fire and the ship had a huge interior fire and ended up having to be retired, decommissioned. It was so badly damaged. And it was in port. So we're glad to see US Bataan. We talked to one of their sailors this morning. They've been out at sea for 9-month deployment, just returning. So US Bataan's about 800 feet, a little over 800 feet long, a 30,000 ton range. Big ship. And it's got a well deck so that hovercraft and tanks can be launched out the back of the ship and go sail to land, deliver supplies or get in the fight. And they can also put cartons on the hovercraft, deploy Marines. About 1,500 Marines they can take out to sea on one of this. I see an Osprey on the front flight deck of the ship. And I was on the ship 2 years ago. I got an overnight 2 years ago to be on the USS Bataan. It was a great opportunity. We've had a chance to visit a couple of them in this class that are on the East Coast, the Iwo Jima, the Wasp, and the Kearsarge. So those ships kind of rotate. We have, we met a good friend gosh, a dozen years ago on the USS Kearsarge when it visited, and a fellow is a petty officer on the ship at the time, Ray Kemp. And Ray's had a terrific career in the Navy. He just retired a couple of years ago, but he became the Command Master Chief on the destroyer Mason, and then on the aircraft carrier Harry Truman. And he's so proud that he took a 6-month deployment on the Truman, and then he brought everybody back. And we can see the Bataan starting to be turned into the pier. It's got to make a 90-degree turn. It was great to see. USS Bataan coming into port on the west side of Manhattan, being escorted by 4 tugboats and lots of security. Ken Kraetzer back for CaMMVetsMedia, watching the arrival of USS Bataan into New York Harbor on the west side. And we are coming in right next to the Intrepid, a World War II veteran Essex-class aircraft carrier, so much history. And had a friend's father's sail on the USS Intrepid, who was a navigator, Andy McLeod, from Pelham, where I grew up. I was very proud of that. It was called themselves a 90-day wonder. He was out of college, and they sent him to learn how to be a Navy officer and how to be a navigator in about 90 days. So it's the USS Bataan with 4 tugs working against the tide. We got lots of New York City patrol boats here. We know how careful they are about docking, and one of the things that they have, they've got 2 small piers set up so the ship never gets really close to the dock. So that's what the ship will dock next to, and there'll be a pier, there'll be a gangplank leading down to that barge. But another safety precaution for the ship. And just coming by is another Coast Guard vessel. And that'll be the Coast Guard cutter Katherine Walker, and it's sailing up Hudson River just past the Bataan, which is now approaching its pier on the west side of Manhattan, just above the USS Intrepid. There'll be visiting hours for the Bataan this week, generally on May 25th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. The Bataan just back from deployment, 9 months worth. An active fight, in fact, again against the Houthis in Yemen. And we all know what happened with Iran. I'm not sure the Bataan was already back by the time that missile attack, 300 missiles launched by Iran, safely defended against by Israel and the United States and allies such as Great Britain and France and others. Big battle flag on the mast of the ship. Looks like a new radar screen up on the front. I'll have to ask about what that is. It's like a big new radar platform on top of just the above and left of the orange flag you may be able to see. stop, take another photo. And if you see, you can see the push of the tugboats. There's 4 tugboats pushing the Bataan upriver. And the tide of the river must be going south, because they're pushing very hard to keep the ship from heading south. Just turn and face the dock. Coming to Port Villa in just a moment. And you're watching CaMMVetsMedia, watching the start of New York City Fleet Week. I'm watching a little bit of the US Bataan and its docking. Again, lots of ferry boats, a few cruise boats, a lot of security boats out there, different sizes. They got everything cordoned off. Got another U.S. Coast Guard cutter going by. Also have 4 boats from the Naval Academy. I see them coming up the Hudson. Basically training craft. As midshipmen, over the summer we'll go out deploy with and sail and train on U.S. Navy vessels. And wish the graduates of the Naval Academy class of 2024 well in their careers in the Navy and Marine Corps. So the ship is being lined up to come into its berth. It's big, it's 800 feet long and neighborhood of 30,000 tons. And as I said, it's designed to take about 1,500 Marines out to sea, any place in the world they need to go. And with all the equipment that they need, it has a well deck in the back. We may be able to see it when it docks, what the well deck looks like. See the gold anchors and the sailors lining the rails of the ship. Also, it's alternating Navy and Marine Corps for the most part. And the ship is starting to be pushed into, or propelled into its pier. USS Bataan coming into its pier. Great to be able to watch the maneuvering that's involved. Of course, you can see the sailors manning the rails throughout the ship.
No, they're they're parking behind the storage. Yeah.
LHD 5. It's one of the newer of the Wasp class. Of course, that class where the Wasp was the lead ship, and following the Kearsarge, Bonhomme Richard, which was a West Coast based ship, which was lost due to a terrible fire that happened during its final stages of its rebuilding. They were preparing it to fly, to harden the deck to fly F-35s off of the. You see the Osprey on board the Wasp. Excuse me, the Bataan. Got a big American flag flying off the antenna, the mast of the ship, and also its insignia flag. When I've been on these ships prior years, they sometimes have flags in the hangar deck representing each of the countries that sailors have come from and get the chance to become U.S. citizens serving in the U.S. Navy. Here you get a very good view of the ship as it comes into the pier. And there's an Osprey, a vertical takeoff craft on the front.
Yeah, or maybe they're...
Could take about 25 troops out, Marines, could take sailors. Anyone who has to get somewhere faster and flying higher than a helicopter does. It said in Afghanistan and Iraq, the Ospreys were popular as they flew higher than helicopters did, so they felt there was a level of safety. We'll be aboard later. We're going to be able to do interviews with a couple of the officers of the ship and also crew, and also some officials of the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps. It's been a busy couple of weeks for us. We covered a Navy League of the United States conference in Washington. And then we were back in Washington for the visit of the Army football team to the White House 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so
Many of the players will graduate on Saturday from West Point, so I'll have President Biden present the Commander-in-Chief Trophy in the East Room of the White House.
So people will get off from there.
And then we went out to Hawaii to cover the Navy League, the Association of the U.S. Army Conference, which was all about working with allies, with 30 different countries represented. We have more. If you go to my YouTube page, you can see some of the keynotes, some of the talks at that event. There were speakers. General Charles Flynn, who's the commander of the Army for the Pacific, was kind of the host. He gave a great talk. But he said it's all about allies and working with partners. And that was echoed by the Navy commander for the Pacific, Admiral Kohler. He said he needs the help of everybody in that room. There were over 1,000 military, senior members of the military there, representing 30 countries. Just want to stop and get a photo. And it's Ken Kraetzer with CaMMVetsMedia. We're back looking at the USS Bataan as it approaches its dock. Right here on the west side of Manhattan. We see one tug has moved between the ship and the pier. Some of the hatches already open to let out lines. One hatch there goes down to the hangar deck, which will be the point of entry and exit from the ship when it's in port. And as soon as it gets in, we'll have a big gangplank lowered to be hoisted down to the barge that is between the ship and the pier. Some years I've had a challenge with getting the gangplank down. See how they do it this year. See some of the sailors and Marines manning the rails. It's a neat little ceremony that happens in just a moment. That you see where that mask is on the front of the flight deck. They will put up a Navy ensign right there as soon as the ship docks and the first line is secured. They blow the whistle and they raise the Navy ensign, which is the "Don't Tread on Me" flag. And they have a young sailor who's that's his job, and it's an honor he has to do that. And seeing as the ship goes by, see the big five. When I was on board the ship, the chaplain would get on the PA system in the early evening and offer words of encouragement to the sailors and Marines on board, and close the day with some kind of a prayer. And he always say, "Good evening, Big Five." And one of the great capital ships of U.S. Navy and the United States of America. As one of the speakers at the Army conference last week in Hawaii said, you know, this is how we project the might of the United States of America, which is the key to deterring war and aggressive actions against our country and fellow allies. See the Osprey got a in the Army they call that a Black Hawk. You got a couple of helicopters. You got a big cargo carrying helicopter. Interesting, they have little tips on the ends of the helicopter blades. that I haven't seen before. So you got half a dozen helicopters here. I rode in one of those. Had a couple of opportunities to fly on a helicopter out to a ship for New York City Fleet Week, and it is quite an experience. Sometimes the toughest part of it is getting out of the seatbelt. You see the national colors above the ship. Looks like it hasn't gotten its paint job for its post-deployment. You can see it looks like, you can see the effects of the seawater on the hull. 9 months at sea. The Middle East, it's in the paper. See, we got a 1-star flag, so we got an admiral on board. So there'll be some opportunities. You can check the Fleet Week website on specifically when each ship will be open and available for tours. But certainly a great opportunity. And also, if you're in Manhattan or maybe in Staten Island or even Brooklyn, you may see sailors and Marines in uniform walking by. They're always going to be in groups. Never go out on their own. Always in pairs or groups. And say hello. Thank them for their service. Ask them where they're from. They really appreciate that. And the US Bataan is probably got another 75 yards or so to get into its pier, depending on how far back it is. What you want is make sure that the stern of the ship is protected by the pier. One time I flew over the Queen Mary, the new Queen Mary in New York Harbor, and it was at 1,100 feet long. It seemed like it was the tail stern of the ship was beyond the pier, which means it picks up all the tidal action. Getting close. We'll take a break. It's Ken Kraetzer for CaMMVetsMedia. And it's Ken Kraetzer back at New York City Fleet Week. The arrival of the USS Bataan, the lead ship for Fleet Week this year. Almost in. Got a little bit to go. And successfully docked. As we said, when they stop and they get the first mooring line secured, they raise a flag on the bow flight deck. The Navy ensign says, "Don't tread on me." And we are just about stopped, so it's we'll have more from the ship later. And see up on their ensign, it's got the big 5 on it. said, that whole area down there is a well deck, which is a couple hundred feet of the back of the ship below the hangar deck, and it allows for hovercraft to leave the ship loaded with Marines, tanks, whatever equipment, whatever the Marines need when they go ashore. And makes these ships incredibly versatile and useful. They have vertical takeoff planes. I'm not sure if this ship has been reconfigured to fly F-35s yet, but some of the Wasp class, I know the Wasp itself was rebuilt. They have to harden the flight deck because the exhaust on the thrust of the plane is going straight down in order to do a landing. They take off by running the length of the flight deck. I believe they can also take off vertically from the flight deck. It just uses up more fuel. So they have to refuel sometimes as soon as they take off in the air. But amazing capability. They call this the Gator Navy. The amphibious assault ships. There's also slightly smaller ones that are in the San Antonio class. The USS New York is one of them. They're about 2/3 the size of this. And there's a flight deck on the back of the ship only, not on the front. And we've been on a number of those. Of course, USS New York commissioned here. Huge ceremony. I think that ship is never going to be allowed to be fully retired. I think it will become another museum ship because it carries steel from the World Trade Center within its hull, within its bow section, and that's so sacred to everybody in New York City. I was thinking those who remember 9/11, we all remember it so well. We all know what we were doing that day. And my wife actually was in the World Trade Center, ran down 35 flights of stairs, rescued, kept safe by New York City police, firemen, other special units. Always grateful to New York City police and fire, but then it was the military's turn. And long wars in Iraq and Afghanistan followed. And now the Bataan is just back from a later conflict in the Middle East, protecting commercial shipping that have been attacked by missiles and artillery by the Houthis, a group in Yemen. And then also, we all know of the 300 missile attack by Iran on Israel that was amazingly defended against by Israel and supported by American resources. I think it's a big question of how much of that was Israel, how much of it was American. I mean, such a strong ally. But U.S. Navy, U.S. Army, Patriot missiles, played a big role. 120 ballistic missiles were fired at Israel. So one of the Maran tugs is, I believe it's Maran, that's heading off, did their job. The other three are just gently helping USS Bataan into its berth here on the west side of Manhattan. So they will get the first line across. Very gingerly managed process. So important that the ship be safely enter its docking space and be tied up to the piers. See a lot of the young sailors and Marines on board. Navy people talk often about how young the crews are on these ships. It's Ken Kraetzer for CaMMVetsMedia. Again, at New York City Fleet Week, the arrival of the fleet, led by the USS Bataan, also the U.S. Navy, the USS Marinette, several Coast Guard cutters, Annapolis training patrol boats. And we're just watching the docking of USS Bataan. This is across from the Intrepid. It's actually backing out a little bit. They want to get the gangplank in the right spot. Looks like they have a ways to go. And this is Ken Kraetzer back at New York City Fleet Week. The USS Bataan has just arrived in New York City. You can see the American flag and its ship pennant. And they just got dismissed from manning the rails as first line may have come across. We're just looking out to see out of the hatch down there. Just lined up where they wanted the hatch on the lower level. It's the very front of the hangar deck. To all the gangplank out of there. In a few minutes, there's another rifle acknowledgement that manning the rails is complete. USS Bataan is safely secured, arrived in New York City. And what a time for the sailors, as they will get liberty to explore New York. Maybe get to a baseball game, maybe get to restaurants, get to TV shows, filming, and they will be honored guests. Yeah, it's the first line being brought across. That's actually what they did the rifle for, was shooting the line from the ship out to the pier, and they'll use that to bring the lines across. It's a little dark, right? Maybe a little dark. We can see them sending one of their lines, and that'll end up being maybe a line in just a moment. So we're going to head over. We're going to get a chance to board the ship and visit and meet some of the officers and sailors, which is what we enjoy doing so much. Anyway, thank you for watching. I want to thank our sponsors, the New York Yankees. They'll have sailors and Marines over. We were out at Yankee Stadium last night. What a great place to be on a summer. It's now it's summer. It really feels like warm. It's really gotten to that point where it's warm. You don't even need a coat. And also the Special Operations Border Foundation. They provide scholarships and mentoring to families in the Special Operations military community that have lost a member in military service. They do a great job, and we're proud to support them. So we're have more from New York City Fleet Week. This is Ken Kraetzer for CaMMVetsMedia. We cover cadets, midshipmen, the military, and veterans proudly since 2008. Thanks for watching.